This is a video where I'm going to talk about planning and schematic thinking in chess, my conclusions on those, and give an example from one of my games. Uh, I think people don't seem to really give a nice, clear definition of what a plan is in chess books that are supposed to be instructive and things. But I thought of one, and I like it. A plan in chess is an objective with an idea of how you're going to achieve it. Now, I don't think that's actually technically accurate. It's just I think it's perhaps the most helpful way to put it. Technically, the plan would really be the idea part and not the objective part. But I think once you figure out what your objective is, then you've won kind of half the battle in coming up with a plan, because generally once you settle upon a objective, especially a relatively specific one, you have a decent idea of how you want to go about it, at least a general one. Um, So, yeah, an objective with how you are going to achieve it, and schematic thinking. Well, that's like where you come up with. You look at the board, and you think where you would like your pieces to be in order to achieve that objective. And so, like to you might want to get a knight on f5 in an advantageous way, and so you wouldn't want it to just be exchanged for the opponent's bishop and be replaced with a pawn. You'd want to be able to replace it with another piece, maybe. So you'd want imagine your knight on f5 and your queen defending it from f3, and so you'd force some kind of weakness, hopefully, in the opponent's kingside pawns when you get that knight there or queen there. And then you calculate from there how you're going to achieve the schematic. I think schematics actually are just an extremely specific kind of plan. The objective is extremely specific. You want your pieces here, and a more general plan might be creating a passed pawn, which is the plan in my game I'm going to show. Let me gather my thoughts for a second. Yeah, so once you come up with a general plan, oftentimes you want to come up with a schematic to for achieving it, and then you begin calculating lines of play toward achieving your schematic and taking into account your opponent's plans and tactics and things, and see if it's worth pursuing that goal. So in this game, I was playing a pretty much higher rated player than I was, 1700 I think, around about, maybe even 1701, either 1700 or 1701 he was when I played him, and it was the Sicilian, and he played early c3, and to my horror it transposed into the French defense, like that, and as an aside, I don't think white should do this. In this game, I was able to exchange black's problem bishop for white's good one. White should generally, in the French defense, stick to kingside play and keep his bishop out of that chain, because in this game it got trapped behind the pawns and was forced to exchange itself for my bishop, which was nice. Yeah, so that was the exchange, and I think I have a decent advantage here. I don't mind giving up the castling ability. I don't think my rooks are going to have trouble getting out, and my king's pretty safe in the center. Here, he loses a pawn, so not his best day, I guess. Not yet. There, that's where he loses the pawn. And finally he begins to play on the queen side, which is supposed to be his area of play. And so I got a rook on the 7th, and that was real nice. I was happy to achieve that. And here he blundered slightly by advancing that pawn. He thought he'd be able to take it with the knight, but that would give up his bishop, because the knight's pinned down to the defense of the bishop. And so that pretty much sealed up his queenside play. So it wasn't looking good for him at this point. Okay, so here my objective is pretty easy to come up with. I want to create a passed pawn on the king. Is that the king side? No, queen side. And I want to do that by advancing the g pawn safely and exchanging it for the the b pawn, exchanging it for the c pawn. And so I imagine a schematic where that's accomplishable with my knight on b3, blocking the white rook's influence on b4, which is where I want to move my pawn to, and then getting a knight to let's see, c6, and then my rook to a5, and then I'd have two pieces controlling the square, and he'd have two pieces, and I'd be able to safely advance the pawn. I think I even did some good calculation and thought it was pretty easy to accomplish. I also wanted to keep my king close to this pawn to be able to deal with any attacks on it, and so yeah, I went like this. If he tries to skewer the knights, then the a7 pawn just goes to c6 defending, and it shouldn't be a problem. But this is what I missed, this defense. And now it doesn't matter if I get my knight to b3. It won't be blocking the influence of the rook. And so I had to adjust my plan, well, my schematic anyway, and come up with a new way to accomplish the advancement of the pawn. And in this case, I wanted to get the rook off of that square, and so I proceed to attack it with my rook. And I was kind of proud of this, because, you know, giving up a positional trump of rook on the second rank for the sake of a plan. And this is something that comes up in Kotov's book. You know, you want to you don't want to be too rigid in your plans. You want to be able to adjust them to changing situations. And so that's what this kind of was. And I didn't like the idea of creating a passed c pawn. It didn't seem like that would be very easy to advance. And so I kicked the rook out, and then I decide I want to have my rook behind there, and then do the shuffle with my knight to a5, and then and basically the same schematic, but with the rook not being able to get where it was earlier. So yeah, that's why I needed to keep my king in range of the pawn. And here I gave him some real drawing possibilities by not exchanging rooks. And throughout a portion of the endgame, the computer says I kept missing a tactic where I could have sacked my knight for one of the pawns to create a strong passed pawn. Probably around here. I don't know. And so from here it's a pretty one game. And so yeah, there was another point I wanted to make. Let's see. Regarding objectives. Well, I can't remember it. Maybe it'll come to me. But this is how the game was finished, and finally he resigned. So yeah, that's what I think a plan is, basically. You come up... Oh, that was the point. And so, in chess, there's a wide range of kinds of plan, ranging from the very general to winning the game, and you want to win the game, and your idea of how to achieve that is by playing better than your opponent, to getting a knight on f5 advantageously, or something like that. And I think when people say you need to play with a plan, they mean play with a relatively specific objective in mind, and a good idea of how you're going to achieve it. And so, that's that.